Did Mighy Guy steal Rock Lee's character arc? Back in Naruto Part 1, Rock Lee had a lot of screen time and plot relevance. His character had a very interesting arc, and he had some of the most amazing moments in Naruto Part 1. When Rock Lee was introduced in the Chunin exams, he was the only character we got a glimpse and foreshadowing for what's to come before the exams even begin, because he has that little fight with Sasuke where he completely stomps the Uchiha. That wasn't so Rock Lee is hyped up, and also the Chunin exams as a whole, showing that the participants are going to be much more powerful than we were anticipating. That they're even able to stomp the most powerful member of Team 7 because Sasuke was the guy Naruto wanted to beat at that time. And when Rock Lee no-diff Sasuke, we're like, okay, what the hell? That's crazy. But Rock Lee was the one used to introduce this new power dynamics in the Chunin exams because he was going to be very important later on, and setting him up before other characters like the rookies from the Leaf Village is something that tells you, yeah, this guy is gonna matter, he's gonna do a lot of stuff, and his character is gonna be important. And he certainly is. Rock Lee has a pretty big fight in the Forest of Death where he comes to the rescue of Team 7 and Sakura fighting against the Sound Team 3 versus 1 all by himself, and he does pretty well until, well, he loses. Other ninjas from the Leaf Village arrive to help him out, and also Team 7. And obviously in the preliminaries of the Chunin exams, we have one of the most iconic fights, not just in Naruto, but in anime as a whole, which is going to be Rock Lee versus Gaara. It's many people's favorite fight, and a lot of stuff happens in that fight that developed Rock Lee's character, as well as Gaara. And that fight was so impactful that it made a lot of people think that the core theme of Naruto was hard work beating natural talent, which is definitely not the case. Otherwise, Rock Lee would have won more fights than 0 in the series. And even though Rock Lee doesn't take part in the finals of the Chunin exam, he is still pretty important because we see Rock Lee in the hospital in that gut-wrenching scene of him trying to do push-ups while he's completely messed up after Gaara's fight. There's also the tragedy of him not being able to be a ninja anymore after his injuries and how he's going to deal with that. When Tsunade comes back to the village, he tells Rock Lee that she could try and do a surgery, but he has a 50% chance of dying in the process, but he goes ahead anyways. And the payoff for that is amazing because in the Sasuke retrieval arc, he shows up to fight Kimimaro, he gets drunk. It's pretty comedic when that happens, but the hype was extremely high, and even though it's supposed to be a funny fight when Rock Lee is drunk, it is probably the funniest moment in the entire series, so it's definitely worth it. And also the way the fight ends with Gaara saving Rock Lee is very cathartic because Gaara, the guy who crippled Lee in the past, is now saving him, the reformed Gaara after Naruto talked on Jutsu him. And he just got the feeling there were many more things to come for Rock Lee after the time skip, especially relating characters like Gaara, because it felt like Rock Lee and Gaara were going to start a friendship of sorts after their fight against Kimimaro, even though they start off with one of the most traumatic moments in the life of Rock Lee, I would say. And yeah, obviously Rock Lee was not a main character, but he was important. He had a screen time. Kishimoto made sure to give Rock Lee a lot of stuff to do, a lot of development, and everybody loved Lee for it. I mean, I guess there are a few people that don't like Rock Lee very much, but it's definitely going to be the minority of fans. Conversely, in Naruto Part 1, Guy was introduced much more as a comic relief character in the beginning of his introduction, at least, when he shows up stopping Lee from fighting Sasuke. It's really funny, hahaha, but then we learn, oh, this guy is Kakashi's rival, and Kakashi was established as a very famous shinobi worldwide and also very powerful. We got to see Kakashi fighting against Zabuza in the previous arc, so we obviously respect his strength. And when Guy says he's Kakashi's rival and he actually is leading Kakashi in their rivalry, we just understand that, okay, this guy may look goofy, but he's nothing to scoff at. Still, throughout Naruto Part 1, Guy wasn't exactly very important. Yes, he was definitely the most important sensei in the Leaf Village after Kakashi among the Jonin senseis. Maybe you could even say Iruka was more important than him in Part 1, but Guy was much more used as a narrative complement to Rock Lee's character, being the mentor who taught Rock Lee, the one who instilled Rock Lee with that power of youth, and the one who saw himself in Rock Lee, and that's why he pushed Lee so hard, so much so that Rock Lee went too far in the fight against Gaara, and he almost got himself, a retirement. The scene when Guy breaks down crying after he sees Rock Lee is knocked out, but still standing, is one of the saddest scenes in the series, when Guy realizes he shouldn't have pushed Lee so hard, and that he was already a splendid ninja. We then get another very emotional scene when Rock Lee is trying to decide whether or not to go through Tsunade's surgery, and Guy tells Rock Lee that if he dies, Guy is going to die with him, showing absolute loyalty to his pupil and also taking out the responsibility for having teaching Lee such dangerous techniques that led to Rock Lee's situation there. But obviously you can see here that the focus was pretty much always on Rock Lee, even if Guy was on screen. I wouldn't say Guy was a minor character in Naruto Part 1, but he was definitely less important than Rock Lee was, both in terms of character and also plot. Guy doesn't really have a major 1v1 fight where he is the focus. He fights against a lot of sound ninjas during the Konoha invasion alongside Kakashi, but we don't see much of that fight anyway, and he's fighting a bunch of extras. They're not exactly powerful. Kakashi and Guy are just stomping them, and out of everything that's happening during the Konoha invasion there, that part of Guy and Kakashi fighting against the fodder sound ninjas, probably the least important of them. Kakashi and Guy don't really get any character development in that part, and it doesn't really further the plot anyway. It's just a way to keep Kakashi and Guy occupied as the Genins are trying to do other things without the help of their Jonins. And then you may even say, well, Guy fought against Kisame and they start their rivalry in Naruto Part 1, which is technically true, but Guy literally lands one kick on Kisame and that's it. It's not as though they had a massive fight. And yes, Itachi tells Kisame to be careful and not to underestimate Guy because he knows about Guy's power. And after we saw the display of power that Itachi demonstrated there, when he compliments Guy's power and tells Kisame to be careful around him, that's a pretty high bar we are setting for Guy. And obviously we can see here that Kishimoto had more things he wanted to do with Guy, otherwise he wouldn't be gassing the character up so much. And after that, Guy blitzes Jiraiya after he goes after Sasuke because he's afraid Sasuke's gonna run into Itachi, but it's actually Jiraiya there because Itachi and Kisame have already left. It's a funny scene. Jiraiya gets kicked in the face by Guy, but he doesn't really get a lot of things to do here. He had always been much more important in terms of character and even plot progression when he was related to Rock Lee's character. Lee was the one having the major fights and the major character development, even though you can also say Guy had character development in Part 1 in relation to Rock Lee as he learns to be a better teacher. The moment he hugs Lee's unconscious self after he is finished off by Gaara is also a moment of character development for Guy. And we obviously had a billion hints throughout Part 1 that Guy was extremely powerful, and we never really saw even a fraction of his true power because he was supposedly stronger than Kakashi. Itachi was telling Kisame to be careful around him. So yeah, Guy was set up to do stuff as well after the time skip. It's just that everybody thought that Rock Lee would still be more important because of the weight he had in Naruto Part 1, but this isn't exactly what happened in Naruto Shippuden. As a matter of fact, it's pretty much the opposite. Guy becomes a much more important character that gets just way more screen time and character development than Lee, and Lee is pretty much completely forgotten. It's not as though Lee gets a more Mighy Guy role in Naruto Part 1 where he is in the background a little bit more, but still doing stuff. No, Rock Lee is just completely gone in Naruto Shippuden. And yeah, this is a problem with many of the Konoha 12 characters. The only Konoha 12 character outside of Team 7 that had an interesting development and a good conclusion to his character arc was Shikamaru. The rest either had lackluster or poor conclusions, or like Rock Lee, had no conclusion or development whatsoever, which is even worse. Unlike in Naruto Part 1, in Naruto Shippuden, Rock Lee only had one 1v1 fight, and it was against a doppelganger of himself in the Kazekage rescue arc. That fight was extremely long and boring in the anime because it was stretched, but in the manga it's really short. It barely serves any purpose. It's just a narrative tool so that Team Guy can go back to reinforce Team Kakashi. And if you think about it, it's a big waste. Rock Lee and Gaara were always those two characters that were put into situations together, and now Rock Lee is in the team that's rescuing Gaara from the Akatsuki, and they barely interact. I mean, they don't really interact at all, actually. Rock Lee and Gaara don't speak a line to each other in that arc, which just seems to be a waste to me. But if that was the only problem with Rock Lee, it would be fine, but after that arc, he disappears. He only does anything at all again in the arc when he has a clash against Haku alongside Guy and Kakashi. Zub's there as well. It's that fight in the early war arc. It's not terribly impactful, and Rock Lee is definitely not the focus in that fight. He's just kind of there. And then, I mean, he kicks Edo Madara in half, which, if you take a look in isolation, it's a pretty cool feat, but it doesn't do anything for Rock Lee's character. It's just like, oh, a nice little panel that most people forget it even exists because in the anime it's so quick. On the other hand, Mighy Guy has a lot of things to do in Naruto Shippuden. He's the only member of Team Guy that has any relevance in the Kazekage rescue arc because he fights against Kisame's doppelganger. I mean, technically his team also fought against against Kisame, but Guy was the only one that had something interesting to do in that fight, showcasing the Hirudora. And yeah, after this arc, Guy, just like his entire team, kind of vanished from the story for a while, but when Guy shows up again, he is actually relevant. He accompanies Naruto to his training with B, and he ends up fighting against Kisame in their final confrontation, which is pretty nice. And in the war arc, Guy does a lot of stuff. Well, he has that fight with Kakashi and Rock Lee that I was talking about, but that's not even close to being the most Guy does, because he fights alongside Kakashi, Naruto, and B against Obito and the Jinchuriki, and obviously he has a major fight against Jubidara. So even though my Guy didn't have the most screen time in Naruto Shippuden, he definitely had relevance, and he had a major character arc, which is great. But because Rock Lee had nothing, I understand why a lot of people say that my Guy stole Rock Lee's arc, because think about this for a second. The major power and mechanics surrounding Rock Lee and my Guy's character were the 8 gates, which obviously were introduced in the Rock Lee versus Gaara fight, and we saw Rock Lee using up until the 5th gate. I mean, he also used the 1st gate in the fight against the Sound 4, but the gates were actually introduced against Gaara because that's when they were explained. And obviously, when Lee uses the gates against Gaara, it's one of the most interesting and hype moments of the series. And when we get the information that there are 8 inner gates and Rock Lee used 5 of them here, the obvious expectation and promise that the readers are given is that eventually we're gonna get to see the other 3. And because Rock Lee used the first 5, a lot of people just thought, yeah, we're gonna see Rock Lee progressing through the gates. But that's not exactly what happens, because instead of we seeing Rock Lee progressing, we see Mighy Guy progressing through the gates. We see Asakujaku with the 6th gate in the first arc of Naruto Shippuden, and then we see the Hirudora with the 7th gate whenever they are in Turtle Island and Guy fights against Kisame. Finally, we see the Evening Elephant and the Night Guy with the 8th gate when Madara is, getting pummeled by 8th gate Guy. And Rock Lee never progresses beyond the 6th gate, which he only uses in the war arc for a very brief moment to help out Guy against Jubidara. He even says, oh my god, I'm so frustrated, I can only go up until the 6th gate. And that's where a lot of fans feel robbed, because, I thought Rock Lee was gonna get those gates, man. It would be very fun to see Rock Lee using them, and also give Lee anything at all to do in Naruto Shippuden. But instead, Guy was the one to use them. Guy was the one that got focused. He was the one that had major fights. Why is that? And did Guy really steal Rock Lee's arc? Now, as I mentioned before, Guy was set up to be extremely powerful in part 1, and Guy being powerful in Shippuden pays off that promise. Also, Guy's rivalry with Kisame was set up in part 1, and that's paid off in Naruto Shippuden with 2 major fights against Kisame. Guy's rivalry with Kakashi that's set up in part 1 isn't exactly paid off in the usual sense, because Kakashi and Guy never fight against each other, because it'd just be a weird thing if they had to. But in a way, we see Kakashi and Guy fighting alongside each other against extremely powerful opponents in the war arc. The moment when the tail beasts are cornering both Guy and Kakashi and they have to resort to their powerful abilities to protect each other. That was one of the coolest parts of those 2 characters, in my opinion. Kakashi using Raiden, Guy using Asakujaku, so that was a payoff for Guy as well. And then we see the 8th gate. Now, when you introduce something like that into your story, an ability that's said to kill if you use it, but you just get this immense amount of power, if you don't use that ability until the end of your series, people are going to be disappointed. It doesn't matter whatever else you do, people are just gonna complain that they never got to see that. It's just kind of a turnoff. So obviously the 8th gate had to be used somewhere in the story, and it was supposed to kill who used it. Naruto saves Guy from the 8th gate eventually, which I completely disagree with in so many writing and storytelling levels, but I can understand Rock Lee not using it, because even if Guy survives, which he shouldn't have, he still gets crippled from using the 8th gate. So Rock Lee, well, he was already crippled once. Crippling him again would kind of feel redundant, but that's not even the main reason as to why I don't think Rock Lee should have used the 8th gate there. It's much more thematic for Guy to give his life. Guy, who offered to also die with Rock Lee if Rock Lee died in the surgery. Guy, who is always talking about the springtime of youth, and when he turns red, it symbolizes an autumn leaf that's about to fall, but it's going to fall on the soil to provide nutrients for new green trees, and it's exactly what Guy tells Madara when he's about to fight fight against him with the 8th gate. And Rock Lee watching that is supposed to be a reminder of what his mentor taught him. It is much more thematically consistent for Mighy Guy, the older character, to sacrifice himself using the 8th gate instead of the pupil, especially considering the relationship between Guy and Rock Lee. And when we get to see Guy's flashback, we also get even more confirmation that Guy is supposed to be the one doing this, after what his dad did to protect him in the past. So everything that Guy is given in Naruto Shippuden makes a whole lot of sense. He could have remained a more background character without as much relevance, but fleshing him out was a great idea and it provided some amazing moments. And everything that Guy does in Naruto Shippuden was set up in Naruto Part 1 independently from Rock Lee. So no, Mighy Guy did not steal Rock Lee's arc. Mighy Guy had his own arc, but the problem is that Rock Lee wasn't given an arc. Guy could have done everything exactly like he did in Naruto Shippuden, and Rock Lee could still have been developed as it was promised in Naruto Part 1. It was just a matter of giving Rock Lee things for him to do, situations for him to use his powers, difficult choices, you know, write the character, give him an arc, because his character arc was by no means finished after the fight against Kimimaro after Gaara saved him. We never see Lee grappling with the reality that even though he trained extremely hard, he lost both to Gaara and to Kimimaro. We never see him questioning his own philosophy that, oh, maybe hard work doesn't always beat natural talent. Maybe when natural talent works hard, it's pretty much impossible for hard work alone to beat it. Maybe my goals were a little selfish in the beginning, that I just wanted to be a splendid ninja, but I didn't care about other people. And I almost got myself killed in the tuning exams because I wanted to show the world that I am worth something, even though it's much more important to protect your friends and the people you love. And you could also show Rock Lee developing the 6th and the 7th gates. Now, maybe Rock Lee's not the one to use the 8th gate, as I said before. That one is perfectly fine if only Guy uses it because he's supposed to die, and if you don't want to kill Rock Lee, that's completely okay. But show him progressing through the 6th and 7th gates, perhaps even give Rock Lee some unique abilities like Hirudora and Asakujaku, but different, so it's not the exactly same as Guy. So the problem wasn't that Guy stole Rock Lee's arc, it was that Rock Lee's character was neglected, just like many others from the Konoha 12. And if you want to see how I would do things differently, definitely check out my Rewriting Naruto series. There's a lot of Rock Lee developments in Naruto Shippuden. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and definitely like the video if you enjoyed it because it helps me out a lot. Ring notifications so you always know when the videos come out. And thank you so much for watching, guys.